Let's talk about one of the most ignored pages on almost every website, the About page. You know the one. It usually sits quietly in the footer, somewhere between the legal notice and the contact page. It gets updated once every few years, maybe when the company moves offices, changes leadership, or suddenly remembers it exists. For most brands, the About page has never been a priority. It's often vague, outdated, overly corporate, or just painfully generic. But that may be about to change. Because in the age of AI, the About page may become one of the most important pages on your entire website. Not for ranking in the old school SEO sense, but for something even bigger. How artificial intelligence understands who you are. And that matters a lot more than most companies realize. Why this page suddenly matters. Today, tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Google's AI-powered search experiences, and other large language models are becoming intermediaries between brands and their audiences. People are no longer just typing keywords into search engines. They're asking AI systems direct questions like, what do you know about this company? Is this brand trustworthy? What does this business specialize in? Who are their competitors? What kind of services do they offer? And when AI answers those questions, it has to build a representation of your brand from somewhere. That representation doesn't come from magic. It comes from data. Data from your website, data from third-party sources, and data from pages that define your identity, explicitly or implicitly. And one of the strongest signals in that mix appears to be the About page. At Wiki, we've been studying the kinds of sources LLMs seem to rely on when answering questions about brands. One of the questions we tested was simple. What do you know about brand X, Y, or Z? From that work, we compiled a dataset of more than 17,000 URLs referenced across AI-generated brand understanding patterns. And the results were revealing. Among the most frequently used page types were home pages, about pages, review pages, product pages, how-to pages, and contact pages. Now, what's especially interesting is this. Home pages and about pages were the most frequently used branded page types in the dataset. And that's a big deal, because most brands have many product pages, many blog posts, many support articles, but usually only one homepage and one about page. So if those pages appear disproportionately often in the sources AI seems to use, that suggests they carry a lot of weight. In other words, in the nearly infinite mess of the web, AI may be treating your About page as one of the clearest statements of who you are. When you think about it, this makes perfect sense. The About page is usually where a company explains itself most directly. It often includes who the company is, what it does, why it exists, where it operates, who it serves, what it believes in, and how it wants to be understood. That is incredibly useful for an AI system. Why? Because AI does not understand your company the way a human does. It pieces together a probabilistic model of your identity from available signals. So when it finds a page where you explicitly define your mission, your positioning, your expertise, and your scope, that page becomes extremely valuable. Compared to a homepage, which is often more promotional, more visual, more crowded, and more focused on conversion, the About page is usually more declarative. It says, this is who we are, and that kind of clarity is exactly what language models thrive on. Why the About page may matter even more than the homepage. Homepages are still important, of course. They show current priorities, offers, navigation paths, and key business messages. But about pages have several advantages when it comes to AI interpretation. First, they tend to be more informational dense. There is often more factual content per paragraph. Second, they usually have a clear narrative structure. They tell a coherent story about the company instead of throwing multiple messages at the visitor. Third, they contain fewer temporary marketing distractions, less campaign language, less promotional noise, and less urgency-based copy. And fourth, the information on an about page is often more stable over time. That makes it more reliable reference point for core identity. So if a homepage tells AI what you're promoting today, the about page may be what it tells AI what you fundamentally are. What happens when your about page is weak? This is where things start to get risky. If your about page is vague, thin, outdated, or poorly structured, AI still has to form an opinion about you. It won't just give up. Instead, it may fill in the gaps using third-party sources. That could mean review sites, old articles, directories, forum discussions, mentions you don't control, or worse, outdated or misleading information. And once AI builds a fragmented or inaccurate picture of your brand, that version can start shaping user perception. That creates at least three major problems. First, misinformation. AI may confidently state things that are incomplete, incorrect, or no longer true. Second, contextual confusion. If your positioning is unclear, AI may misunderstand your sector, your expertise, or your offer. And third, lost visibility. If generative search and AI assistants don't understand you properly, you may simply be left out of relevant recommendations and summaries. So this is not just a branding issue, it's also a discoverability issue. What an AI-friendly about page should include. So what should an about page contain if you want it to help shape your digital identity correctly? At a minimum, it should clearly and explicitly communicate a few essential things. It should identify the company precisely. What is your exact name? What is your legal structure? Where are you based? When were you founded? It should explain your mission and positioning. Who do you serve? What do you actually offer? What category do you belong to? How are you different? It should also support your credibility. Who leads the company? What experience do they have? What certifications, affiliations, awards, or notable achievements reinforce trust? And it should include also factual, verifiable information. How large is the company? How many clients, users, or projects have you served? What technologies, integrations, or capabilities matter in understanding your offer? It should also communicate values on long-term direction. What do you believe in? What commitments matter to you? How is the company evolving? In short, don't just say what you sell. Explain what problem you solve, who you solve it for, how you approach it, and where you fit in the bigger picture. The most important shift: be explicit, not poetic. This may be the biggest takeaway of all. A lot of about pages are written to sound nice, but in the AI era, sounding nice is not enough. You need to be clear, very clear. Instead of saying, "We create impactful digital experiences," say, "We are a UX UI design agency specializing exclusively in mobile applications." Instead of vague claims like, "We are an innovative company with global reach," say, "We were founded in 2018, currently employing 27 people and operate in 3 countries." Instead of letting people or AI guess your limits, state them openly. If you only do front-end design and not back-end development, say it. If you only serve a specific geographic market, say it. If a related service is often confused with what you do, clarify that too. Because LLMs are inference machines. If you leave ambiguity, they may fill it in with assumptions. And assumptions are where hallucinations begin. So, what you do and what you don't. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's smart. One of the most useful things you can do on an About page is define not just your expertise, but also your boundaries. Why? Because AI models often associate companies with adjacent products, services, or categories they do not actually belong to. So if you don't clearly state where your scope ends, the model may extrapolate. That can lead to false associations, brand confusion, or completely invented capabilities. A practical solution is to include a section like what we do not do or our scope of work, not as a defensive disclaimer, but as a positioning tool. You can explain what you focus on, why you focus on it, and what sits outside your area of expertise. That kind of clarity helps both users and AI systems understand you more accurately. Don't forget the technical basics. Content matters most, but technical structure matters too. Your About page should be easy to parse. That means use a clean heading hierarchy, use proper HTML text, not key information buried inside images, use consistent vocabulary across your website, and where relevant, support the page with schema markup such as organization, local business, or person. This is not about gaming AI. It's about making your identity easier to interpret correctly. And that leads to one final point. Don't create content just for algorithms. Create a page that is genuinely useful for humans, but structured clearly enough that machines can understand it too. That's the sweet spot. So, does the rise of AI mean revenge for the About page? Honestly, maybe yes. The page that used to be neglected, rushed, and buried in the footer may soon become one of the main reference points AI uses to define your brand. And if that's true, then the About page is no longer just a corporate formality. It becomes a strategic asset. A page that can help AI understand who you are, what you do, what you don't do, why you matter, and how you should be represented. So here's the real question. If an AI had to form an opinion about your company tomorrow, would your current About page help it understand you correctly? Or would it leave the model guessing? Because in the years ahead, that difference may shape far more than your website. It may shape your digital identity itself. Thanks for watching.